Hey guys, and welcome to today's Beginner's Yoga Flow. This is a sequence to help those of us looking to get into yoga and just getting a basic idea of how everything is done. So to begin, we're going to start off in a seated position with our legs crossed, hands on our laps. With a straight spine, we're going to take a few deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just focusing our minds, clearing everything and forgetting everything that's outside of the mat. Then, dipping our heads down, we're just going to roll our heads from side to side, going from left to right, feeling a nice stretch in our necks, matching our movement with our breath, breathing in through the one side and exhaling through the other. And then rolling our heads back, we're going to do it on the back end of our necks, getting a nice stretch on all sides of our muscles. Then coming back to center, we're going to stretch our sides of our necks. So placing our left hand out to the side, we're going to let our head hang out down to the right and maybe placing our right hand on our head just to get a nice little stretch on our necks. Then releasing our hands and going on to the other side, right hand down to the mat, head hanging down to the left, and using our left hand just to pull our head down just slightly more, just to feel a bit of a deeper stretch. Coming back to a central position, taking a few deep breaths, and then we're going to go into a spinal twist, placing our left hand behind us with our right hand on our left knee, and just turning our bodies over, looking over our shoulder. Taking some nice deep breaths, feeling our lungs expand and contract with every breath. And releasing and swapping over to other side. Left hand on right knee, right hand behind us, and twisting and looking over our right shoulder. Feeling a nice stretch in our spine and our core, and feeling a slight stretch in our neck. Then coming back to center, we're going to go through a variation of seated cat-cow. So taking a deep breath in, we're going to expand our chest, pulling our shoulders back. Before exhaling, bringing our chin to our chest and rounding our backs out. Going back and forth, lifting our chin as high as we can as we inhale, before bringing our chin back to our chest as we exhale. Matching our movements with our breath as we go back and forth, giving ourselves a nice spinal massage, warming up our backs and our spine. On our last one, gonna meet me in a tabletop position. So hands below shoulders, knees below hips. As we just take a few breaths and just go over our wrists, getting them nice and warm, go in a circular motion around them, either clockwise or anti-clockwise, before swapping over and moving on to the other side. Just getting some nice blood flowing and getting our wrists nice and warm. Then meeting me in neutral position, I'm going to go through a thread the needle. So lifting your right hand up, reaching as high as you can, before bringing your hand and threading it between your hand and your knee, bringing your shoulder down before letting your head hang down on the mat, and letting your hand reach out to the front and just relaxing your whole upper body down. Then coming back onto all fours as we move on to the other side, lifting your other side up, reaching for the skies, before bringing your hand between your hand and your leg and just lowering your head and your shoulders down to the mat as we just relax into the pose, making sure our hips are above our knees and everything just relaxing. Then coming back up, we're then gonna walk our hands out in front of us and just lower our whole upper bodies and forehead down, coming into a puppy pose, keeping our hips above our knees as we just breathe in, letting our shoulders and head hang down. Just taking some nice deep belly breaths, keeping everything nice and relaxed. Then coming back onto all fours. We're going to extend each leg out, coming to a high plank. We're just going to gently move our whole bodies up and our shoulders over our wrists before pushing our hips up and back into our downward facing dog. Walking our dog out, just bending one leg at a time before coming to a nice active resting pose, just holding our dog out bringing our belly button as close to our thighs as we can and letting our head hang nice and loose. And then from there, we're going to walk our feet towards our hands, getting into a nice forward fold, letting our whole upper bodies hang nice and loose. And taking a deep inhale, we're going to go to a halfway lift, keeping a nice straight back before exhaling to a forward fold. Then slowly, one vertebra at a time, we're going to come to a nice full standing pose for Tadasana. Exhaling before placing our hands behind our lower back, giving ourselves a nice back bend, coming back up straight, lifting our hands above our head, grabbing our left wrist, and pulling ourselves over to the right side for a side bend, getting a nice stretch in our ribs. For standing up straight, grabbing the opposite wrist and moving on to the other side. Coming back up to center and coming down to a forward fold. Then from there, we're going to extend our right leg out, lifting our upper body as we lower our back knee for a low crescent lunge. Taking some nice deep breaths, trying to push our hips as far forward as we can with our knee over our ankles. Before bringing our hands down, lowering our knee towards our hand and our foot across for an active pigeon, pulling our shoulders back as far as we can, before finally bringing our whole upper body and head down for a more passive pigeon pose. Then coming back onto our hands and our feet, kicking back into a high plank, before lifting our hips up and pushing back into another downward dog. And moving on to the other side, walking our feet towards our hands, inhaling for a halfway lift, exhaling to forward fold, and then slowly inhaling, rolling our spines up, coming into a full standing position, hands on our lower back, fingers pointing towards the ground for back bend, coming back up straight. As we lift our hands up, coming from another side bend, grabbing our wrist towards the right. Before swapping over and moving on to the left. Then once we're back up straight, hands down to the mat, and now our opposite leg kicking back to the end of the mat, lowering our knees, and lifting our hands up for another low crescent lunge. Bring our hands down to the mat, lowering our knee and our foot back down, lifting our whole bodies up before bringing it down for a passive pigeon. Then gently bringing ourselves back up, taking our legs back together, holding another plank, really pushing the earth away from us as we bring our knees back and lowering our hips to our heels as we come into a child's pose with our forehead on the mat and our hands out in front of us. Just taking some nice deep breaths, feeling our lungs expand from the side to side. And before exhaling, letting it all just sigh out through our mouth. Then coming back up and meet me in a seated position, either on your knees or with your legs crossed. We're just going to keep our eyes closed and just meditate, feeling how our bodies feel different from the beginning until now. Just taking notice as we just really breathe in and feeling how our bodies are feeling throughout the practice. Then on your last inhale, bring your hands up and palms together, bringing them to heart center as we exhale and bow, closing our practice. I really hope you guys enjoyed this practice. I hope you found some benefits. And in the future, I hope you can let me out to see you again next time on the yoga mat.